Okay, so this is finding zeros from graphs. I'm going to show you based on like our transformations and our A, H, and K first, and then we will talk about how to do it in a graphing calculator. So if we have A, H, K, remember there is no A, so we're going to use 1. The H tells you left or right, and the K tells you up or down. So, and that when I say left or right or up or down, I'm talking about where you move the vertex to. So I'm going to go ahead and graph this. So if we, the H value. So we're going to take our vertex and we're going to move this. Remember, it's the opposite. So instead of moving on to the -4, the left side, you're going to move to the right. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have to move our vertex down 1. So that's where our vertex is at. Now our A value is 1. So from this point, we're going to move over 1 and up 1, over 1 and up 1. So this would be our graph. So our zeros on this graph, remember that's our zeros or our roots, they're the same thing. And it would be at +1, 2, 3. So when X equals 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when X equals 5. Now, if you remember, think about that point. That point is at the point 3, 0. We call it a 0 because the Y value is 0. We call this, or this point would be at 5, 0. So all we're identifying is the X value where it crosses the X axis. So just keep that in mind. So this one's answers would be X equals 3, 5. Don't write it as a coordinate. Don't put parentheses or that would look like a coordinate. You're just listing the zeros. All right, let's do this next one. So don't miss that negative right there. Okay, so we have A, H, K. So always find your vertex first. So we're going to move left 2, 1, 2, and up 1. And then our A value is -1. So from this point, you're going to move over 1, down 1, over 1, down 1. So our graph would look like this. So our zeros would be here and here. So our zeros would be when X equals -1 and 1, 2, 3, -3. So -1, -3, or -3, -1. Doesn't matter which one you list first. So those two were pretty simple just because of how I picked the points. If we look at this next one, I wanted to graph it. A, H, K. So our H would move it right 3, 1, 2, 3, and down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our A value is 1, so I'd move over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1. Now, if you think about this, some people might graph it like that. Some people might make it wider. So we don't know, based on how we've been graphing them, exactly where they cross. So that's where we're going to use Desmos. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to share Desmos. So desmos.com and then hit graphing calculator. Once it pops up, you're going to type in y equals x minus 3. Remember, hit shift 6 to get the squared, and then -5. So once it's graphed, I actually did a pretty good job. If you click on that, I'm going to write this point down. 0.0764 comma 0. And this one, if you click on it, it will give it to you, is 5.236 comma 0. So if I round that to one decimal place, it would be x equals, oh, sorry. Let me, don't stop share. There we go. So then that 6 makes that 7 round up. So it'd be 0.8. This one would be 5. That 3 makes the 2 stay. So it'd be 5.2. So those would be our zeros on that one. Now, this is in transformation form. So if we look at this equation, we don't know how to graph this one because we haven't worked on converting from this form to this form. So this is called standard form because it's written with the x squared, then the x, and then the constant. So we're just going to take this one and we're going to use Desmos. Oops. We're going to use Desmos and we're going to graph that new equation. So y equals 2x squared plus 7x minus 3. And again, when you're on Desmos, you can just click on those. So we would have x equals negative 3.886 and 0.386. Let me stop sharing. I want to round to one decimal place. So to the tenths. So the 8 would be 9, or this 8 makes that 8 go to a 9. So it'd be negative 3.9 and 0. That 8 makes that a 4. So x would equal negative 3.9 and 0.4. There is a way, I do have another video where I show how to do that in this calculator. So if you hit the y equals underneath the screen, and then you hit if you just hit the graph button, it will graph it for you. The steps in this calculator are more complicated. So I will do that in a separate video for anybody that has this calculator. But for this year, we're just going to use Desmos. So that video would just be if you prefer, or if you want to use your graphing calculator, you can. But for right now, we're just going to use Desmos based on time. So that is how you find zeros. You can graph them, but this one you really can't tell. So that's why we put it into Desmos.